In today's talk, I learned how Janet Lee got her first major illustration contract before even illustrating a page of her graphic novel.
I dropped out of art class in 8th grade because my arch nemesis beat me out in the landscape. There was a drawing contest and she won, and I was like, that's it, I'm going to take Latin and be a writer.
This won't be like the ninth grade talent show.
Aye, again with this.
Yes, again. It was a pivotal moment.
In today's episode, I'm talking to Janet Lee, and I met her through a group called SCBWI. A few things I noticed about what Janet was telling me about her background is that she was doing her own thing, but she got her start at Ingram Book Company through customer service. I'm getting the feel that it's just all about who you know. But how do you get to know those people? Janet started in customer service, and she has the talent and the skills, but she matched that with her hardworking ability, and through that was able to reach the level that she did.
Got a degree in English and went to work for Ingram Book Company for almost 2 decades. I worked most of it as a book buyer, and I thought that was going to be my career. I started out in customer service, believe it or not. Between the two, I had spent a couple of years working retail, as one does when one graduates college, and I ended up parlaying that experience into working customer service. And Ingram is really, really good at promoting from within, so I was able to apply for jobs. So I ended up working in international sales for a little while. I worked for their print-on-demand company for a little while, and I ended up working in the purchasing department, eventually being in charge of a team of buyers. When I got promoted to the team buyer position, I was purchasing textbooks, which was lovely people, absolutely wonderful people, but it wasn't as creatively fulfilling as regular buying had been for me. So I started doing artwork on the side again for fun, and did some guerrilla art shows around Nashville, there's a group called Untitled, and my husband and I went to an art gallery, little tiny one in East Nashville, and there was a person there handing out information for Untitled, and it was basically a group that would take over a venue, maybe a warehouse, maybe a church, wherever they could find for one night. Yeah. You, as an artist, would pay $10 at the time to put 3 pieces of artwork in the show and volunteer some time for it. And if you sold a piece, you got all the money for it. You were only out $10. But if you didn't sell anything, you were still only out $10 and got a lot of experience sort of seeing people interact with your art.
Okay, so that's a takeaway. Go find some art groups local to you and see what happens.
By the second show, I actually sold a piece. It was great, and it was a show where I had been taking oil painting classes on the side. Had just had a baby and realized that oil painting was really not going to work for me. I also have decided I'm not as much a painter as a drawer. I like drawing more than painting. I tried a new technique where I drew images and then cut them out and decoupage them onto boards to sell as the artwork, and that's what sold. And eventually that's what I started showing in different galleries, and a friend of mine who worked for Marvel Comics at the time, I had known him at Ingram, but he had moved to New York and worked for Marvel Comics. Jim McCann decided that he wanted to write a graphic novel. He wanted to write a comic. He wanted to write, and he'd been advised to write something that Marvel would never publish. So he came up with a story around 3 pieces of art of mine that he really liked, and went to a publisher, sold it on the floor of San Diego Comic-Con, the largest comic convention in the world, to this publisher. without my having produced any art for it. So it was completely based on my gallery artwork, which was all decoupage at this point.
Just showed up with a pitch.
Yeah.
And your 3 pieces of art.
Yeah.
And
Well, pictures of my 3 pieces of art. It's worth noting because one of the pieces was 6 feet tall and was like Magritte-inspired men descending from the sky around, which if anybody's read Return of the Dapper Men makes total sense because it's filled with 314 dapper men that descend from the sky.
So wow, the author of this graphic novel, Jim McCann, sold the story on the floor of the San Diego Comic-Con before she even produced art for it. Now that is wild because I'm learning about picture book dummies and the emails upon emails that you need to send out, and this was a lovely story of wits and luck, of being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people. Janet tells me that she was at Disney when she got the call about getting the contract for the book. She was really excited to get started.
We were at Epcot Center and Daisy Duck was hanging out nearby and I took the phone call off to the side and it was Jim and the publisher to talk about what we, to talk about the contract. And I don't remember much about the details except that it was a go and I was giddy.
The graphic novel, which won the Eisner Award, is called The Return of the Dapper Men.
So for people who don't know, my crazy claim to fame is I kind of do a poor man's Photoshop. It is layers of drawings that I cut out and glue onto boards and then scan or photograph in, and that becomes the page. So instead of just doing a single drawing for everything or using Photoshop to replicate stuff, I hand drew layers and layers and layers for every page in a year. While working a full-time job, while working a 50-hour-a-week job. It was
So did you do
insanity.
late nights?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And early mornings.
And early mornings?
I would, in retrospect, I am slightly frightened that I was handling purchasing decisions with so little sleep at the time.
She got this book together while having small children and working a 50-hour-a-week job. Goals? I mean, that's very impressive.
No, I seem to have done a really good job, but if I had, with maturity, and I probably
Would have handed it
would have done, or would have argued for a longer time frame.
She shares with me that it's good to have an agent for negotiating contracts.
But you can. That's one of the things you can ask for in a contract is a longer time frame.
Okay.
It's a little harder with your first boilerplate, but as you get experience, and that's one thing that an agent can do for you too.
So I'm learning from that perseverance and managing time and just, this all goes back to the thing I'm hearing a lot, which is being obsessed.
Eisner's given out at San Diego Comic-Con.
San Diego Comic-Con sounds like a cool event to go to. I think I've heard of it. Yes, I've heard of it.
So the year we were nominated for it, neither one of us really had any track record of publishing. Okay, let me back up slightly.
Yeah.
Jim could have gone at any point as a marketing representative for Marvel. Mm-hmm. He had tickets to go. He could go. But what you want to do if you're a creator is to go and have a small table there. You have like a 3-foot table. It's tiny.
That's probably hard to.
They are, and if you haven't put in for them, they go very quickly, then you're mostly out of luck, except if you have an Eisner nomination, in which case you can call them up and go, but I have an Eisner nomination, and they found a table for us.
I guess having an Eisner nomination can help in a few areas, for sure.
I'm kind of a big deal.
They found tables for us, so we had a little table, and we were set up and talking to people. It was really exciting, and people were coming by, and I was getting to meet editors. But the Friday night of San Diego Comic-Con is the Eisner Award ceremony. So Jim had kindly set us up for a spa day.
Clothes.
Treat yourself.
Fragrances.
Treat yourself.
Massages.
Treat yourself.
Mimosas.
So we went to the spa day and tried to calm down for it, and then went to the dinner. I remember it was the last one of the night. We actually tied with Wilson, which is one of the great comic books of all time, and we co-won the best graphic album of the year. So it was like winning the Academy Award, the best one for it.
I asked her if she ever had a moment where she just, kind of soaked it in that she had accomplished such a big feat. If she had like a pinch me kind of moment.
Hadn't even illustrated before. This was my first illustration work at all.
Right.
I had just been doing like gallery stuff for fun. Okay. I had been talking to some of the people I met, some of the sales reps I met through Ingram, who thought that I would be great for like middle grade spot illustration, and had started talking to me about it. So it was on my radar, but I didn't think I would start with a graphic novel. And I definitely didn't think I'd win an award the first time out.
I asked her about the shipping process and whether or not that went smoothly.
My 6-year-old is now 22, so that tells you how long ago this was. Our book was due to come out in late, like early December. And there was a slight delay in shipping. And because it was not showing as stocked, even though I knew from my position that stock had been received, I know way too much about the weird bowels of how books move through the publishing industry, but I knew it had been received, but I knew it had showed up, but it hadn't been received in yet. And it hit like a day when Amazon decided that it was not going to show up in time for Christmas delivery. So they started notifying everyone that they might not get the book for Christmas. Did they want to cancel and reorder another time? So I ended up calling our warehouse and talking them into receiving a single copy in so that it would show received. So the metadata would go out to all the vendors and say it has been received somewhere. All illustrated books right now have to be printed overseas. There simply isn't any place in the US right now that prints in color and prints with all the bells and whistles that we like to have with the book. Foil, cutouts, things like that, French flaps. We don't really do that. Canada has a few.
Okay.
And they get used a lot for the comics publishers, like monthly comics, like Superman, Spider-Man, that type of thing. Yeah, the ones that are like little magazines you can get on a magazine rack. They do a lot of printing for that, and some collected ones, but China and Korea, I think, and Taiwan are the places that have the most.
Okay, so I wanted to know whether or not self-publishing or traditional publishing was the way to go. If you had a project that you really believed in, which I do, I have a few, is it worth waiting on somebody to bite your traditional publishing project, or do you just go for it and self-publish? What was her opinion? She said,
there isn't a better. Let's start there.
Yeah.
There's only the path that's best for you.
Okay.
And I say this as somebody that worked at the dawn of print on demand as well, in a print on demand company. So
Ingram. Yes.
Ingram, yeah, back when it was Ingram, like the Lightning Source instead of Ingram Spark. Okay. That's how old I was. But there is no right way. There's just what your comfort level is. So if you're like me, I do not enjoy a lot of the marketing aspects of things. I don't want to run my own publishing company. And as you know, being a self-publisher, part of that is you are your own publishing company. You're dealing with invoicing, you're dealing with marketing. You sort of have to know yourself and know what you're excited about. There's also certain genres that tend to sell better in self-publishing. I mean, in my experience, informational books require a lot less work from the publisher than something like a novel. Because with something like a novel or a children's book, there's about 1 million books published every year, and you have to cut through the noise. Big house publishers don't necessarily offer a huge amount of marketing support all the time. I mean, it really depends on, and this is another terrible secret, the bigger your advance, the more money they have invested in you, the more they're going to spend on marketing. So if you are beginning, you're still going to be doing a lot of your own marketing for things. It's just the way it is.
So you could still be kind of buried in the noise.
You can.
Maybe
However,
not have the best deal.
Right.
And then also have no visibility.
But what you do have in that case is a reputable, you can, the name can go into the different buyers and you will be purchased.
Okay. So there is something to say about the reputation of a big publishing house that helps.
So there are still chances within that. A lot of the sales reps read extensively from the list, if not all the list, as much as catches their eye. I have had sales reps come in for me and say, I personally love this book. I want you to read it and do it so they will champion books. Yeah. So it's, some of it is marketing, but some of it is just old-fashioned hand selling. Well, and you do have like a ground level of a library is going to have a much easier time carrying you. There's going to be certain things, you're going to be school talks, things like that. They will support you for these things. Yeah. I think it's also important to sort of think outside the box and figure out where you can market things.
Janet tells me about the American Library Association conference.
One of my favorite, it's not a festival, it's a convention to go to, is the American Library Association convention. They have 2 a year, one in the winter and one in the summer, and the one in the summertime has a area for, it's called either Comic Book Alley or Pop Culture Alley. Yeah. And comics publishers, people that make comic books, can get a table there and talk to a bunch of librarians about how great their book is. It's amazing. And all you really have to do is, turn it in. Okay. Turn in your information, apply. It's juried, so don't give up. Sure. No, but they do also cycle through things because they like to have variety. So after 3 years, you have to take a break if you've been going.
Finally, we talk about mentors and why mentors are important.
Jim was definitely a mentor, and I've been helped by tons of people across the way. I've had a great deal of information about the business of the industry itself. I had a lot of mentors when I was working at Ingram. Jim definitely talked me through everything about the first one and introduced me to a bunch of people, which is something else mentors will do. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you sort of understand the industry and introduce you within the industry. And along the way after that, I have met so many other friends. I call them friends now within the publishing industry, within comics specifically. We even formed a group at one point. It was originally Comic Book Women. I think it's now called something else, but because they wanted it to be more inclusive. But it's all about people that maybe are not the first people think about for comics, and sort of pooling resources and talking about things that work, things that didn't work, experiences with people, things like that. A little bit of critique that can be critique. It can also be this publisher's offered me a contract. Has anybody had experience with them before? Which is very helpful too. And I think most people in publishing are fairly collegial. I personally strongly believe that a rising tide lifts all ships, and the more people read or find books they want to read, the more they're going to read, so it helps everybody. Mm-hmm. Huge fan of that. So to that end, on the flip side, I try to give back too. I teach classes at the library occasionally. I'm teaching an art student right now. I occasionally have interns that come in for the summer, things like that, to just, it's mostly about helping someone just sort of see what the industry is and help them along the path a little bit.
Janet tells me how she's also mentoring.
So I never know if I'm actually helping, because part of me too, I don't want someone to look just like me. I don't want someone to draw or make art like I do. I want them to find the path that works for them. So I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to encourage people to experiment and find what works for them. That's something and in turn, it's helped me sort of try new things and encouraged me to try new things as I do that for other people. So that's been a huge plus for it. I don't know if you've gotten to hang out with kids that are, in college or in high school or in middle school who are just starting to think about maybe making art long term. It's wildly inspiring to just hang out with these people at the beginning of their journey. At the base level, just seeing the interesting things they do alone, things that I never would have thought of on my own, is super. Seeing where their inspirations come from, also wildly interesting. But beyond that, somebody that's maybe willing, and you get kind of tired after you've knocked on the door for so long, and it can get discouraging. And what they never tell you in the books is that even after you get the first book sale, you still have to pitch the second book and the third book and the fourth book. It's kind of constantly a bit of a battle. It's a work, it's a job, and it can get tiring sometimes. And to have somebody who's at the beginning, who's energized and ready to do it, and they're like, yes, let's do this now. It makes all the difference sometimes, just talking to somebody else who's ready to ready to begin, who sees how exciting it is, and it makes you excited again too.
Doctor said, take it easy, but your loving is much too strong. I'm welding to you. Chain, chain, chain.
Oh my goodness.
In conclusion, I learned not only having a mentor can be valuable, but being a mentor is valuable. And I appreciated Janet sharing her wisdom with me in our talk. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you learned a little something about publishing, about self-publishing, about cats. If you like this episode, please subscribe and like and share and all of the things. Hey, come here. Where are you? Hey. Do you want to be in my video? Hey. Do you want to be in my video?